Lumos.
Let's pull out our wands, light the tips, but we're not blowing smoke. We're here to illuminate ghosts. This chapter is easily the most time that we've spent with ghosts so far, and definitely the most we see at one time in one given place throughout the series. We learn a few things, like that they celebrate the date of their death, like we celebrate a birthday, which is weird, but cool, I guess, and that it takes on a little bit of a funeral feel, which makes sense. Like you said, it's my death day. I'll cry if I want to. So I figure, aside from like the specific scenes with specific ghosts, this is as good a time as any for this podcast to really just talk about the ghosts in this series. So I'm going to start like recapping a few things that we know about ghosts. Each of the Hogwarts houses has their own ghosts, and those ghosts are the ones we get to know pretty much at all in the series. In this chapter, we get a mention of the ghosts for your house as a Hufflepuff, the Fat Friar.
Of course, he's fat.
How do you feel about his representation in the story?
What representation? I don't think he ever gets to do anything.
It literally stands out to me that he's the one that doesn't matter. Kind of like the whole house.
Yeah, like the author was like, ooh, cute little name, Fat Friar, and then was like, oh, I guess Hufflepuff needs a ghost. Okay, you can have the Fat Friar, and then like, okay, and I'm done.
Pretty much. That's about as as much notoriety as the house and the ghost get in one place.
Yeah.
Which is, I guess, sad, but also I don't really have the connection with the houses that some others in the fandom do.
I think the Fat Friar's just a nice guy.
I get the same vibe, I guess.
Yeah. He's almost like a guy. He's like the guidance counselor for Hufflepuff House.
Oh, that's a fun little headcanon. I always think of him just because he's right next to the kitchens all the time, and that's where the dorm is.
Yeah.
So he just ends up their ghost. Anyways, we spend time with Nick the most, obviously, because he's the Gryffindor ghost, and this whole story is told through the perspective of a Gryffindor student. So his main contribution, I would say, to the story is when Sirius dies, and he kind of consoles Harry, for lack of a better term. Explains to him how and why Sirius wouldn't become a ghost.
Yeah.
The Grey Lady is a huge character in the series, because it turns out she's Helena Ravenclaw, Rowena's, which is a founder of Hogwarts, by the way, daughter, who stole the lost diadem, which is why it was lost.
Intentionally lost.
Yeah, intentionally lost. And then she let Tom Riddle go get it and turn it into a Horcrux. Stick around for that chapter in spring of 2028.
I do the same shit over on my podcast. I'm like, tune back in 4 years.
Yeah. Apparently, and we mentioned this earlier, the Bloody Baron is the obsession-driven maniac that stabbed her to death. Obsession seeming to be an unwritten character requirement for Slytherins that we talk about in this series. Go ahead.
So, if he stabbed her, he made her dead. Mm-hmm. She is a ghost. She comes back to Hogwarts. Years later, he dies and follows her to Hogwarts for all eternity.
More instantaneous than that.
Did he kill himself right away?
Yes.
Okay. Well, he still followed her to Hogwarts, and he should probably fuck off. They should probably fire him.
Yeah, and apparently the chains are symbolism to her. Like, so he's like showing her that he will wear these chains for, the rest of his damnation and eternity or whatever, like as a penance for murdering her.
He should also maybe leave her alone.
Yep, probably.
Go to a different location.
Yeah, but like, I mean, this whole fucking series has to happen at Hogwarts. Like, you
Yeah.
can't have anything that happens outside of
true.
Hogwarts, apparently, which is why every romantic partnership in this series sucks, because, like, everybody marries their high school sweetheart. Whatever.
That ain't right.
But it did take me down this little rabbit hole of obsession. Like, why is there so much obsession in the Slytherin house? Bloody Baron's obsessed with Helena. Snape is obsessed with Lily. Draco is obsessed with Harry. Slughorn is obsessed with collecting children. Tom Riddle is obsessed with immortality, power, and himself. And all of them we meet are obsessed with blood purity, leading back to Salazar himself, who was also obsessed with himself enough to put a statue of his own face in the Chamber of Secrets, which we're going to love getting to look at in, I don't know, several weeks. I'm pretty certain that's not a movieism.
Yeah, I think
I could
you're
be
right about
corrected.
that.
But the Fat Friar doesn't do shit.
No, he's just there to help.
Nothing.
Just there to be a friend.
So that's fun. What character from this series do you think would most likely choose coming back as a ghost?
The way that being a ghost is portrayed in this world, especially as you mentioned when they're talking about like Sirius, it seems like it's like a bad move of, at least the way that Nick, if I'm remembering correctly, the way that Nick describes it is it's like a bad move that like a coward would do, kind of. And so I almost feel like someone like Slughorn would become a ghost because he's like afraid to move on. He just wants to stay where he's comfortable.
I like that take. I think that's a really interesting interpretation of it.
What about you?
I could see Snape.
Oh yeah, unfinished business forever.
Yeah, I'm sure that the Snape stans would say that he would go on and like finally apologize to Lily or some shit in the afterlife.
Ew.
But
Sorry.
I think
In the afterlife, Lily doesn't have to talk to Snape anymore.
Right. I've also heard some people say that to the people who think that Snape would go and finally be with Lily or whatever, like she would just slap the shit out of him and say like, "You made my kid's life fucking hell.
Yeah, I've
Fuck
been
you."
watching.
Yeah. So I don't think that's it. I think he's pretty much just a miserable sack of shit because he wouldn't have anything to go on to.
Yeah.
Like, is he just gonna go hang out with Dumbledore?
Yeah.
If he does go on,
His only friend.
Yeah, so I think realistically, because he doesn't have, like, he really is written as nothing to live for.
Nothing
and also
to die
with,
for.
yeah, and like, well, at least nothing to look forward
Yeah.
to in the afterlife. So I could see his character, being a decent ghost option. I also think about Cedric.
Oh.
Mostly on your like kind of young, kind of immature, kind of unfinished business. Like,
Yeah.
I wasn't ready
didn't live
yet.
his life. Yeah.
Kind of thing. Yeah, and that's actually something I can't take all the credit for. That's something I heard in a published fan fiction. I listened to it as an audiobook, which I don't think is on YouTube anymore, but it was. It's the James Potter series by
you were telling me about
G.
that, right?
Norman Lippert. Yeah. In his, he wrote Cedric as a ghost in Harry's son, like Harry's kid's timeline.
Yeah. Wow.
So it was it was interesting. And honestly, the books weren't bad. They beat the hell out of Cursed Child,
Nice.
all up and down the block.
I'll have to check those out.
Cedric never became a Death Eater, I'll tell you that. And Harry didn't emotionally abuse his children, so there was that too.
Does that happen in Cursed Child?
Yeah.
God, I don't know anything about Cursed Child. I only know like the very.
Oh, yeah,
I know
don't.
like the very basic plot because my brother
Just don't.
read it, and I was like, I'm not even gonna read it. Please explain it to me. So I made my brother explain it to me.
I was a very unfortunate soul. This was the biggest downfall. Aside from like, this fandom's pretty fucking cool. So like having known more about it at the time maybe would have been beneficial for me. But one of the biggest downfalls to reading this series through as like a 25-year-old man, it happened to coincide with the release of Cursed Child.
Yeah.
So like I had finished the series. I was kind of like going through podcasts. I was watching YouTube videos and theories and stuff like that. I was sort of just going down the rabbit hole when they released Cursed
Yeah.
Child as the 8th story,
Oh,
so I
whatever.
immediately read it, and oh my gosh, is it awful.
Yeah.
Anyways, but this one I found also on accident. I don't even remember. I must have been very bored, needing something to listen to, and I stumbled across it, and I started it and tried it, and I'm like, the plot gets bonkers. I'm just gonna say that the plot gets bonkers throughout. There's 5 books.
Yeah.
It's a 5-book series. But it felt more like Harry Potter adjacent enough to be enjoyable. The writing style,
Yeah.
was pretty solid. The descriptive style was reminiscent of Harry Potter. And it was the characters and some story choices that got a little silly. One thing, not to spoil anything for anybody, but one of the main points is that Merlin comes back
Oh, that's kind of cool.
and ends up headmaster at Hogwarts.
Whoa.
And then Albus Dumbledore ends up with a doppelganger, which is a totally fucked up thing. So if you're gonna read the books, I'm actually interested in how that goes. I would love for you to do it and tell me how it goes, because literally nobody else I know is ever gonna read these things. But they were pretty decent. But I bring all of that up because they also have an explanation of how ghosts come to be. And in this book series, it takes years for them to actually become visible and able to actually interact with the living world.
Wow.
It doesn't really have any merit on the real Harry Potter canon, but I just thought it was really interesting, and Cedric's character explains it in that.
That is really cool.
Yeah, he has a bigger role as a ghost in that series than he ever did in Harry Potter when he was
It
alive.
reminds me of Ghost, starring Patrick Swayze, Demi Moore, and Whoopi Goldberg. The way that have you ever seen that?
Yeah, I would have been a kid.
Okay, well, it's one of my favorite movies. I love it.
I remember. I don't remember it scene by scene.
Yeah, but it basically, it's Patrick Swayze is dead and he's a ghost, and he's, spoilers for the first 10 minutes of the movie, he's dead. And he's trying to communicate something very important with his wife or girlfriend who is still living, and it's very hard for him to interact with it's he, over the course of 2 hours, he has to learn how to interact with the physical plane so that he can warn her. And it starts with he's trying to kick a can, I think, in a subway station, and it's very fun.
Yeah, I don't remember all of that. I think I just remember bits and scenes, and maybe that means I didn't actually watch it as a kid. I only saw the previews. I don't know. Speaking of ghosts in movies, though, are you satisfied with the stuff that we got from the ghosts in the movies?
They took out, you had to have ghosts because you have to have Helena Ravenclaw.
Yeah.
But
Right.
they don't really matter besides that. In Sorcerer's Stone, it's for the vibes.
Ooh, yeah. Look how whimsical.
Yeah,
how
so
fun.
it's
Magic and ghosts.
I don't really care.
All that shit.
Oh, and you have to have Moaning Myrtle. I forgot about her. So
Yeah,
she's
her
fun.
too.
Her performance is really excellent. That character is fun. But Sir Nicholas, it's we didn't really need him.
No. Because the main thing that he does that's actually important wasn't in it.
Yeah. Yep.
So, anyway. Anything else on ghosts interest you to talk about?
In this chapter, Sir Nick is reading a ghost letter. Where'd you get that ghost letter from? Did a ghost owl bring it? When a ghost touches a piece of paper, does it become ghost paper?
Well, they can't touch the paper. That's why Peeves has to be the one to drop the cabinet,
So,
right?
where'd
Because
that
the
ghost paper
ghosts
come
can't
from?
actually touch
Do
things.
ghosts have a thriving commerce where they're selling ghost paper?
Ghost paper, ghost quills,
Yeah, there's a lot of
ghost owls. Because ghost candles, I guess. Because
Yeah.
they don't have any modern technology in the wizarding world, apparently, even though they live amongst muggles most of the time.
That's true. Also, ghost clothes, because Sir Nicholas is described as wearing a shirt with a very high ruff to cover his scars, but they would not have beheaded him in a high ruff. That's something he would have gotten later.
You are 100% right.
Because if you're going to behead someone, you want to see where their neck is so you can behead them. So I just have a lot of questions about where ghosts get their things from.
It must be those years in between that Cedric was talking about in the fan fiction.
Those years in between are like at the beginning of Sims when you're creating your sim and you're like, I want this thing, I want this thing. So you have to like get all your items and it takes a while for you to recorporealize. And then you're a ghost now.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was just his way of... Because it ends up coming back too. Like, I think it became important in that book series that it takes like 20 years or something, or
whatever.
Yeah, like 20 years or something for them to come to be. So it ends up, I guess, making sense. I don't know. Whatever. It doesn't matter. This is a Harry Potter podcast, not a fan fiction podcast. Particularly only the one of 2 fan fictions I've ever read in my life. The other being Cursed Child. So let's do some...
Divination.
It's time to highlight 4 moments in the chapter that foreshadow something to come in the future. 1. Harry finding Filch's quick spell pamphlet and friend George Weasley having their own drawer in Filch's office. They've obviously been in there a lot, and this quick glance and mention is a bit of a foreshadow to how we later find out that they got their hands on the Marauders map, which will become a key magical object in the series for Harry and a connection to his father. And it's kind of hinted at, we can at least see the scene, right? It looks a little bit like what Harry was just going through, except instead of finding Viagra pamphlets, they found the Marauders map. 2. The vanishing cabinet Peeves drops to try to get Harry out of trouble.
That's crucial.
This is the very cabinet that has a twin that we've already seen in another divination segment in Borgin and Burke's. The pair that Draco uses to get the Death Eaters into Hogwarts and kill Dumbledore in Book 6. He learns about it because of Montague, I think that's his name, getting stuck in this one when it's broken. It's broken right now.
Yeah.
This is why Draco has to fix it all year, and there's more connections to Book 6. Ring theory fun! I think I asked this in a different segment of this, but is Dumbledore's death Fred and George's fault?
You know... well, actually, I was re-listening to our Death Day episode today, and Haley Haley said, is Dumbledore's death Cedric Diggory's fault? No, Oliver Wood's fault for doing these, like, crazy Quidditch practices and, like, leading Harry to, like, walk in with the mud.
Okay.
A lot of factors that are coming together to kill Dumbledore, I think.
Yeah, you gotta go a little bit but that doesn't explain the instant darkness powder that Draco uses to get the Death Eaters from cabinet into castle.
Wow. Yeah, you're right about that.
That's Fred and George's fault too.
Yeah, well, you know.
So the cabinet, the darkness powder.
They just make tools, and tools can be used for good or evil.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. We're the world is not split into good people and Death Eaters. Meeting Moaning Myrtle is our foreshadow number 3 at the Death Day Party. Her introduction and Hermione explaining how she haunts the girls' bathroom and all the blah 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 blah. All this foreshadows the trio using the privacy of that bathroom to make the Polyjuice potion they use later in this book and try to find out if Draco is the heir of Slytherin. 4th foreshadow for me, enemies of the air, beware. You'll be next, mudbloods. Draco's a little piece of shit, but that doesn't exclude this from being a foreshadow, because the next petrifications that happen at Hogwarts will be Muggle-born students. So that's my 4. Do you have any foreshadowing that you like from this chapter?
Yeah, there's the one I mentioned earlier with Ginny and the pepper up potion. She's not good.
Yeah.
And there's little mentions throughout the whole book of her just not doing too good.
not doing too good because apparently she's being possessed.
I can't believe this is her first year of school. I can't believe she comes back for a second.
Yeah, and is that kind of one of the foundational pieces of book Ginny being just a total badass?
I guess, yeah. Because she endures
just
this.
That she's able to...
moves on.
Yeah, she's just like, yeah, but she's just going to go on and still be awesome.
Yeah, and I think at the end of this book, there's some kind of a line where it's like, well, and Ginny's fine. She's back to normal. And I'm like, she's not fine. She's not fine. She needs therapy.
Yes, along with a whole lot of people from this series. Cool. So that wraps up Divination. Let's give away some...
House points.
In true Hogwarts fashion, these points are completely subjective with no oversight and fully at my discretion. This week, I'm giving house points to Nearly Headless Nick, who's getting 10 for getting Harry out of trouble. Peeves is getting 5 for carrying out the actual cabinet-dropping plan that gets him out of trouble-ish. Harry's getting 5 for supporting Nick and going to the Deathday Party, I guess. Hermione and Ron are both getting 5 as well for going along with it, sacrificing an actually enjoyable meal for this weird, glorified funeral. I'm also taking away house points from Filch, who's losing 5 for being a total power-hungry dick to Harry. Flu or not, he's an asshole. Nick is losing 5, so 5 of his 10 are being taken back for making Harry miss the real feast and go to his stupid Death Day party, ultimately putting him in a position to hear the basilisk and put them in a bad spot at the scene of the crime. Maybe 5's not enough. Harry is also losing his 5 for dragging his friends to this stupid Death Day party. I am taking 5 from the Headless Hunt for 1 existing and 2 being pricks, and another 5 for the head of the Headless Hunt guy. Thank you for being extra dickish. And Draco is losing 25 for being a racist piece of shit multiple times in this chapter. Did I miss anyone that you liked or didn't like or want to throw some points around?
Okay. I'll give Ginny like 15 points for managing to petrify, to take down the world's most evil cat without getting caught.
25 points for petrifying evil cat.
Yes.
Not getting caught. That's impressive because that's kind of a bad thing to do, but getting points for it because of the cat in question.
I'm used to like D&D where it's like, yeah, she rolled a nat 20 on stealth for that one, you know. I also want to give Madame Pomfrey some points for taking care of all these sick, nasty children. Let's give her 10 points.
Yeah. Sick, nasty children. Yeah. They're no fun to deal with. I don't even, like, it, yeah. Alright, so all these points are going to go in my nerdy-ass spreadsheet as soon as I actually create the spreadsheet. I promise I will before the end of the season so I can tally them up for the Binges Awards. Before we go, I have to acknowledge moments in the episode that were utterly...
Riddikulus.
It's not an episode of The Binge if we don't call out what didn't make any sense, starting with Harry hearing these voices clear and loud enough to make out the words. On a reread, we know that this is Parseltongue, snake language, and it makes sense that Ron and Hermione, or anyone else for that matter, don't understand the words that are being said. But if Harry can hear the words, they should absolutely hear the hiss.
Right.
There's nothing anyone can say that's going to make me believe otherwise. Do you want to try? Or are you with me on that?
I'm with you on that one. Unless they're like, oh, the pipes are just old and making noises.
Yeah, I just can't. The fact that Draco's able to shout racial slurs with no consequences at all is completely ridiculous. For one, an older student would kick his ass, or a prefect would escalate the issue to a professor for disciplinary actions, or at the very least, like, you went to grade school at some point in time in your life, right?
Yes.
What do 12-year-olds do when someone calls them a name that they don't like?
They clap back. They're like, hey, no, that's not true. You're a butthead.
Maybe, in the moment, some kids do that. That's true. Some are a little bit more confrontational. In my experience, a lot of them, run and tattle to a teacher.
But Harry hates authority, so he's not going to be tattling to a teacher.
Right, but this just happened in a crowd of students. One of them is running to a teacher, and unless it's Snape, any professor that hears this would take immediate action.
Yeah, it's true.
So, what about you? Anything that we read in this chapter that you're just like, no, I call bullshit. Doesn't make any sense.
I think like the intentional rotting of food so that ghosts can quote almost taste it is like a huge waste of food for no reason. And a human a living human has to clean that up. Like I don't get that. Also the fact that they felt like they had to go to the feast or the party and they couldn't just do a little bit of both, that's ridiculous.
Yep, it 100% is. With that, we've reached the end of this episode of The Binge. Christina, I cannot thank you enough for slumming it on my podcast. This was a lot of fun. What do you want to plug, promote, anything? The floor is yours before we go.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so happy to be on the show. And please check out the restricted section, which is my Harry Potter Slander, Harry Potter Book Club podcast. If you would like to start with the chapter Veritaserum from last season, that's the one that Zach came on, and that was extremely fun. Longest episode ever. And yeah, we'll be starting Order of the Phoenix at the end of August. So those episodes come out every Wednesday, so please check us out. Also, if you're a writer, or a reader, please check out Wildling Press, which is the small press that I co-founded with some colleagues. We publish a lot of like science fiction and fantasy stuff, and we have a lot of tools for writers, including a podcast called How Do I Book. So lots of fun. I got lots of fun little projects to check out.
I liked how you did the How Do I Book preview on the restricted section and went from like the Hogwarts house's perspective.
There's four of us who created this company together, and we are each one Hogwarts house. So we're like the 4 founders of Hogwarts.
And you didn't like disown your child after she stole something from you and
right.
then sent the bounty hunter that would murder her, which is awesome. And you didn't create a chamber that was supposed to murder children. You didn't. What did the other two do?
I didn't hide a sword in a hat. That's what Gryffindor did that, right? The sword comes out of the hat.
Yeah, rabbit cruelty, I guess. Pick a sword instead. Yes, dad jokes. As always, shout out to producer Jack, who I work like a dog. Remember to follow and subscribe to the show on whatever podcast player you're using. And if it supports a rating and review option, please leave one. And if you're so inclined, check out the additional benefits available on patreon.com/belatedbinge. I put a lot of work into those. It would be great if you would take advantage of them. If you're reading along, next episode, we will be covering Chapter 9 of Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, that I can't think of the name off the top of my head right now.
Or is that some other writing on the wall?
I normally have it written down, but I forgot to write it down for this.
It is the writing on the
outro
wall.
reading. The writing on the wall! See, this is why you have an actual Harry Potter podcaster on the Harry Potter podcast. Until then, I'll see you next time on the Belated Binge podcast.
The chatter, the bustle, the noise died suddenly as the people in front spotted the hanging cat. Harry, Ron, and Hermione stood alone in the middle of the corridor as silence fell among the mass of students pressing forward to see the grisly sight. Then someone shouted through the quiet, "Enemies of the air, beware! You'll be next, mudbloods!" It was Draco Malfoy. He had pushed to the front of the crowd, his cold eyes alive, his usually bloodless face flushed as he grinned at the sight of the hanging, immobile cat.
listen to Kanye West like back when he was just a cocky, preppy, like new rapper, and before he decided he was God himself, his song Workout that had like a skit right in the middle of it.
Oh, I don't know if I've ever heard that version.
It's like, I don't know what it. Thanks to Kanye's new workout tape, I done like this whole thing. Like this is how I read the quick spell thing.
Oh, that's funny. I'll have to go listen to that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's fine. Nobody ever knows.
It
what
reads
I'm
like
about.
a music video interlude.
Yeah, right.
That's like I've been rewatching SpongeBob lately, and like SpongeBob was trying to tell me a lot of things when I was a kid, and I wasn't prepared as a child to like hear those messages. But in my adulthood, I'm like, oh my god, he was trying to tell me that capitalism is a trap. Like he was really trying to.
SpongeBob was written to be an adult cartoon comedy, and then like it was just adjusted because it got picked up for kids. Yeah. Look that up because I don't know all the details.
That tracks so much.
If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure that the origin of that show, I could be totally full of shit here, by the way, but I seem to remember what I read was SpongeBob was supposed to be adult, like comedy, like an adult cartoon, and SpongeBob and Patrick were supposed to be in a relationship together.
Wow.
And that was supposed to be, and I mean, during that time, that would have been very,
controversial.
Yeah, exactly. And it was supposed to be like very edgy humor all around that and whatnot, I believe.
Wow.
But it actually got picked up as a kid's show. So like some of the nods are still there. Like they're still very, very close to each other. There's still a lot of rainbow references.
Yeah.
Like there's still some stuff in there. There's still like adult.
That whole episode where they have a baby clam and they're like a married couple.
My bowling story is that when I was a senior in high school, a buddy of mine got word that they weren't going to have enough guys trying out for the bowling team to have one.
Oh.
And I had a vested interest in there being a bowling team. So we were like, fuck it. Like, let's just go. We tried out, and of course there were like 15 freaking people there, and I'm too damn competitive to give up. So,
Did you make the team?
Yeah, I made varsity.
Varsity bowling. Did you get a jacket? Did you get a letter?
No. Well, yeah, I lettered, but I didn't. I never had a jacket.
Wow.